So an engine that helps you rein in every single aspect of your business in order to grow and accelerate that growth trajectory to 8 figures, so to speak.
Welcome to the Post-Purchase Pro podcast.
This is the only podcast that dives deep into post-purchase marketing to help Amazon sellers increase sales, ranking, reviews, and profits. It's everything that happens after the initial sale that makes a difference. We call this the back end.
This is the Post-Purchase Pro podcast, and today we have a very, very special guest, Danna Oren from 8Fig. She is the VP of Product, and we're really excited to talk to her. But today, I've swapped my co-host from Shawn to Danny, who is our marketing director here at Post-Purchase Pro. So Danny's going to be helping me out today. But Danna, let's kind of start with your background and your history. Kind of how did you get into this e-commerce world? How did you get into 8Fig? And let's dive into your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Seth and Danny, and not present here, but also Shawn. Thank you so much for the invitation. So how did I get started and how did I end up at 8Fig? A series of fortunate events, I would say. My career started in actually marketing the analytic world of CRM and lifecycle marketing, which is pretty much just a fancy way of saying user obsession and measuring everything about user behavior in order to optimize experience and interactions and get users from point A to point B, which at the time I didn't realize, but now I realize is very, very close to how product development and product road mapping works. Which is just start with the user. What can you do to make their lives better? And that should guide you. Those challenges are the precise way that you should be taking. Did some of those roles in, among others, an e-commerce company, where I learned more about supply chain and about the inherent opportunities and also disadvantages that e-commerce in itself holds as a business. Became very, very fascinated and met the founders of 8Fig, heard the idea and said, I want to dedicate my time to building this because it's going to make a really, really big impact on sellers' lives. And it has.
Wow. That's amazing. So Don, how long have you been with 8Fig now?
I've been with 8Fig for a little under 2 years, and considering the fact that the company is a little over 2 years old, that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so you've been there almost from day one. Once you kind of heard the vision, you locked onto it and you said, this is something important and this is something that I believe in, right? So that's amazing. So before we get in too far and we keep talking about 8Fig, what is 8Fig, Danna, and why is it amazing?
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily the vision that grabbed me originally, but it was really the challenge and the proposed solution. And then the vision sort of was born out of that, right? Of how can this be bigger and more impactful and more significant and really scale? So the main problem that was identified way back when was surrounding supply chains and supply chain financing, and how can sellers maintain their cash flow in a healthy state when usually what you're talking about here is not these built out enterprises with a procurement department that handles everything and then the finance department that ensures that everything runs smoothly. But really you're looking at what typically is a sole proprietor or a one-person show, max two-person show, who are just doing everything, wearing absolutely every single hat in their e-commerce business. And with 8Fig, we stumbled upon a really innovative model of financing that was just custom tailored for e-commerce sellers to both grow and be flexible and be able to rein in all of those different operational challenges that they had. So when building this, it was, okay, we've got this amazing solution from a financing view, but why stop there? Why not make sellers' lives easier in every other aspect that they find stressful? And that's how we ended up at what is currently the format of 8Fig, which is a platform that you can use and you're encouraged to use even if you're not seeking out funding, and use it as an operating system of sorts. So an engine that helps you rein in every single aspect of your business in order to grow and accelerate that growth trajectory to 8 figures, so to speak.
That's amazing. Um, just speaking as a Amazon seller before, I know that we always come with the many issues that Amazon brings to the table, right? And when I first started back in 2013, 2014, it was a whole different ball game compared to what it is now. So, what do you think that most sellers that are in our position before they even know about 8Fig, what do you think most sellers have issues with before they come and join 8Fig?
That's a great question, because I think there are so many solutions nowadays which touch on like a specific part of the seller life cycle and the struggles that they're dealing with. And time and again, however you slice it, truly the number one problem that we see that's measurable is working capital. That's the number one problem that sellers are seeking 8Fig out for. And if you think about it, it's also a great problem to have, because it means that you're growing and it means that there's a lot of demand to capitalize on. And that's where 8Fig's initial offering and service came about. It's this really tailored solution for financing. However, when you look at it, you examine it even further, you see that there are additional challenges which are, they're up there. They may not be as painful as working capital, but for example, something like flexibility, which is inherently missing from every financial product out there, and that's just how finance works. It's not flexible, and you have to live with it. But what happens when every other aspect of your business is dynamic? And I'm talking about everything from supply chain, which as we saw in 2021, I mean, dynamic doesn't even begin to describe it. And also we're talking about Amazon, right? You just mentioned Amazon. So can anyone say that Amazon policies are not dynamic? I don't think Amazon would say that they're not dynamic. So the seller has to constantly adjust, constantly pivot, which just adds to their worries around working capital. So having that flexibility was really key, and it was from the get-go. If we're gonna do a custom solution for e-commerce and it's not flexible, then we just haven't done our job. We haven't built a good enough product.
So, Danna, at 8Fig, you guys kind of specialize in helping e-commerce sellers and Amazon sellers grow by providing flexible working capital, so then they can invest in inventory, invest into their business, right? So I know that as we were building our business out from 2014 to 2016-ish, during that time frame, we launched more than 1,000 products. We created a lot of mess. We had all these products and we learned all these things, but one of the things that I noticed was that Amazon, to build a business, to build a private label brand, you need to have a lot of cash because of the inventory aspect of it, right? So it was, these metrics kind of changed over time, but in the beginning, it was like if we had $100,000 worth of inventory at Amazon, it was pretty much assured that we were going to do about $100,000 in revenue that month. If we had $1 million in inventory at Amazon, we were probably going to do about $1 million in revenue that month. So it was kind of eerie to see that my inventory outlay directly translated into my revenue, right? And so as you grow as a seller and your revenue starts to exceed your inventory, well, probably you're going to have a stock out situation. And if you don't have the capital to reinvest fast enough, then you're going to stock out and then you're going to lose all that progress that you gained. So how are you guys a little bit different than other financing companies? Because I know one of the big things that 8Fig talks about is the flexibility of capital. So what do you guys, how are you guys different out there in the marketplace?
So I love that you brought this up, because in addition to flexibility, there's another way in which we're very, very customized for e-commerce, and that is in the planning aspect, in getting essentially your supply chain, which is a part of every e-commerce seller's day job, but just not one that they particularly like to focus on. So managing your supply chain in order to ensure that you're, of course, sufficiently stocked at all times, avoiding stockouts is a feat in itself. And since we're talking about people who are sole proprietors or, a one-person show, it's no easy feat. Now, what 8Fig does is initially when we launched, since our whole financing model is predicated on supply chain operations, we launched a tool to manage your supply chain better. And nowadays it's evolved a lot to include a lot of shortcuts, the automation of a full year's plan of supply chain operations, but the core offering of it has remained the same. So it's enabling the seller to visualize what we call the cash flow crunch, which is the need to constantly be initiating batches of, ordering batches from your manufacturer, from whatever vendors that you have, to ensure that you are consistently stocked and meeting demand. Now, the cash flow crunch gets in the way when what you're having to do is just constantly pay for inventory before, months before being in stock and actually selling that inventory and seeing that return from it. So it's not that it's, the typical, let's say, cash flow situation that, let's say, a brick and mortar pizza shop would have, where any given month you have overhead and you have the cost of supplies and things, but that gap is inherently very small. It's, maximum a week or so from getting the revenue and having to pay. But with e-commerce, you're talking much larger periods of time. So your lead time for products, whatever it may be, but also a much higher profit margin. So the investment is definitely worth it. Just like you were mentioning with, having $100,000 worth of product means $100,000 worth of profit at the end of the day. That's literally the numbers that we're talking about, except for sellers to actually have that capital on hand months before, and be able to sustain that deficit long enough to actually be in stock and get that amazing payday at the end. That is the hardship that we're constantly trying to help with.
Yeah, that's amazing, because like you said, there's always hardships that are on our plate as Amazon sellers, right? And for me, one of the biggest things was always trying to forecast my inventory in the future, right? And now that we have all these supply chain issues going around, we know what's going down in China, we know what's going down throughout the world. Do you also help sellers kind of strategize their way with getting the correct inventory at the correct times and reducing those calls? I know you just mentioned your tools right now, and I mean, I wish I knew about all this stuff back in the day when I was starting, because I did baby wipes and wet wipes, right? So getting those supply chains on track was very hard. So what do you have for tools to help sellers right now foresee those supply chain issues in the future?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways in which we help sellers in real time. One of them is, our entire planning team is dedicated to constantly mining the data and finding opportunities for our sellers. Whether that means, hey, pay attention to this deceleration in sales pace, maybe try to postpone your next order or reduce the number of units, or having the opposite problem. Hey, there's a spike, you better initiate another order, you better double the number of units. Get on it, right? But also, we have tools within 8Fig which enable you to, using automation and some machine learning, enable you to create a full year's worth of planning, enable you to benchmark yourself against other sellers and things like that. I am going to put a huge asterisk on that, because from what we know of supply chains, from what we know about consumer demand, from what we know about platform policies, the best prediction that you have is still not going to be what you end up doing. Which is why at 8Fig, when you're creating your supply chain plan, we emphasize absolutely everywhere that we're not going for precision here. Just have a good idea of what you're going to do now, and then when it comes time to execute subsequent batches, maintain your account, maintain your plan, and ensure that you're always optimizing. So that's really all you have to do. The flexibility is to a level where, with absolutely every new order, you could change strategy, you could accelerate, you could decelerate. So you don't have to constantly have this worry of, am I projecting well enough? Am I accurate enough? Because it's probably volatile. Could anyone have predicted COVID? Probably not.
But I think also having you guys on our side and reinsuring what we're doing is correct and kind of putting us in check whenever we're not correct. I think that gives us a lot of pressure off of our shoulders to have someone on your side like that and have a team that actually foresee the futures, right, Seth?
Yeah, I really like that. So not only, Donna, are you guys going to provide some of the capital that we need to grow, but you're also going to make maybe even some recommendations to as what that should look like. So that's really good. So Donna, I'm a seller that's building a brand on Amazon. That's predominantly who our audience is. I'm growing, and I realize that I'm not going to be able to keep up with demand because I don't have the cash. So I come to 8Fig, and I am looking for capital for my inventory to grow. That's kind of like when somebody would want to come and engage with you guys. But do you guys offer any type of funding for non-inventory, or are you guys focused predominantly on inventory funding?
No, so sorry, funding for every stage in the seller supply chain. So that includes inventory, of course, freight forwarding, logistics, fulfillment, marketing, really anything that you're spending money on that has to do with the cost of goods sold. 8Fig is happy to fund, and indeed we see that usage is vast across all of those categories among our sellers.
Yeah, perfect. Donna, I know we're kind of getting tighter on our time here, so we have a couple questions we like to wrap up with. Donna, what is your favorite business book?
My favorite business book. It's a product book.
Perfect, let's have it.
Okay, so it's Hooked, and it talks about user engagement and ways to motivate users to achieve various goals and help themselves using products. And I think that when you're looking at a business environment or a startup, that is a very good way to scale, to ensure that your product is meeting the vast majority of user needs, and then keeping your operations team to really just handle exceptions and things like that.
I love it. So I've never heard of the book, but I'm definitely going to check it out because I can already tell that you're obsessed with the whole product experience and creating a wonderful customer experience. And if that's your favorite book, I'm going to definitely dive in. So
yeah, definitely. So the book is by Nir Eyal. He's a great UX and product researcher. I don't know if I mentioned the author's name.
No, that's perfect. Okay, so and Donna, here's a funny one for you. So Donna, what has been a purchase that you've made that was kind of a splurge, but you didn't regret it?
Oh my gosh, okay, that's a curveball. A splurge, but I didn't regret it. I'm gonna go with a gift that's actually sitting right in front of me. I'm in our mutual shared office with my husband, and I got him a very expensive guitar that he wanted.
Oh,
and it
nice.
was definitely a splurge, but when it's a gift, you enjoy it 10 times more.
Absolutely, that's amazing. So anytime you're giving a gift, it's hard to regret it because the joy is
Exactly.
so big, isn't it? So that's amazing. So Donna, as we roll out of here, where should people find out more about you, find out and reach out to 8Fig?
Yeah, so 8fig.co, that is our URL, our address. I encourage you to sign up, make an account. Even if you don't need funding right now, just use the other tools that we offer, such as helping yourself plan your supply chain a bit more effectively. That's always a good idea. Using our analytics tool to track, your sales, your cash flow, your supply chain. All of those could have, just really good benefits for your business. And as for me, everyone is welcome to email me at any time at Danna@8fig.co. It's actually Danna spelled like Dana. So DANA.
Perfect. So that's 8fig.co, and that's the number 8. So guys, check it out if you need funding. Go and register over there. They are doing some amazing things with flexible working capital to help you grow. So Donna, thank you so much for being a part of the post-purchase podcast today. I'm Seth Stevens, your host, along with my co-host, standing in Mr. Danny, our marketing director at Post Purchase Pro. Thank you so much, Danna. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Seth and Danny. Have a wonderful weekend.